Hey, and welcome to another video. In this video, we're gonna continue off and finish the upgrade section of the workshop level. So with that, let's get started. So the first thing we're gonna do is head over to the workshop and then open up the performance widget because we're gonna need to add the navigation for each of the components. And then we're gonna head over to the piston. Oh, by the way, while off screen, I ended up creating folders for each of the components just to keep things nice and organized. I'm going to go to pistons, select the pistons, Control C, back to workshop. I'm going to start with the crankshaft, Control V, and then just rename these. So this one is the crankshaft, and then we're going to open it up. Just drop this to the top, open up the purchase. Then in the performance graph, actually let's do all of them at once. So just select all these, Control C, workshop, then we're going to go boost, rename the widget. So now with all of them done, we're going to head over to the performance widget. Then we're going to select the crankshaft. And then we're going to go on clicked. Then we're going to select the pistons code, highlight that, then Control D to duplicate it. And then we're just going to change the create widget from the pistons to the crankshaft. And then we'll do the same for all the other components as well. So boost next, unclicked, Control V because we already copied the code with the duplicate, and then change the widget as the boost widget. So now we have all the widgets set up. We're just going to test and make sure that they do in fact go to where they're supposed to. So we're just going to play the level. I'm going to go performance, the crank. So we have it set up at back, pistons, boost, brakes. Okay, so everything is set up, but they also is stage 1 because we haven't changed the code yet to tell it which component to target. So we don't do it now, just test it to make sure that it does create all the widgets. So now I'm going to go and make them retarget. So now we're done with the performance. We can close that, head over to the crank. And then we are going to go to the graph. And then we'll just start off firstly by renaming the variable for the stage. So instead of pistons, this is going to be the crankshaft now. And then compile just so it updates. And then we need to change all the stages. So by the factory, the set members, we are now looking for the crank. So our pistons, crank, remove that, and then it's going to be the same. 1, same here. From the pistons to the crank, going to use the same values, 1.1. Change this one as well, 1.2, 1.3. And then we need to change the widgets as well. So the widget is the crankshaft widget, crankshaft pop-up, select the node, right click, and then refresh nodes. Oh, we haven't changed the variable in there as well. So let's just go through that. And then just come in here, select this one, the piston pages stage as well. And then just rename this one as well to the crankshaft. And then compile back to the crankshaft widget. And then now if we right click and then refresh nodes, then disconnect it, just reconnect that. And then the same here, we need the crankshaft, just refresh it. Oh, sorry, not that one, the crankshaft pop-up. And then just reconnect the noodle, reconnect it, and then refresh. And then that will be it. There's nothing else we need to change here. We've changed, oh, we also need to change the BPS that we're targeting, so it's not the BPS pistons. Remove that, and then drag off, and then we need to break. No, actually, we need to get the proper one from here. So pistons and set crankshaft, and then we break it. So break. Then we need the stage 3 at the bottom, and then we want to select these two nodes. Control C. Remove these two. Control V, and then change this from 3 to 2. Connect the execution pin, remove these two, Control V, connect it, change it from 3 to 1, connect that, and then that should be everything. Just double check all the functions just in case. I know we made this very generic, so that works out well. The code here is as it should be, the pistons and the crank. And then yeah, that should be everything. And then this one over here, also the check stage installed. We're using the pistons, so we need to change this as well from the pistons to the crankshaft. And then just connect all the noodles again. And then that should now then be everything. So compile, save, and then head over to the crankshaft pop-up. And then in here, we want to do the same thing. Want to double check everything. Tier 1 and Tier 2 vehicles. That's fine. The comp. So I have the crankshaft over there. Then we need to change the one we're targeting. So not the pistons. We need to get the crankshaft. Crank stage 1. Connect that. And then we're going to control C that. Move the pistons. Actually, no, I don't even know how to control C that. Just drag off and then look for the crank stage 2. Sorry about that. I thought we could copy it, but then I forgot it's different stages and not one variable. Then the same for the pistons, stage 3, get the crank. So then now that is it for the upgrade costs. Compile, add bags with it. That function is fine. We did that one. Then we need to go and check the purchase comp. So the crank stage, remove the pistons, get crank as 1, and then go through the code by the set members, change this from the pistons to the crank 1.1, remove the set members, select the DPS vehicles, change this from the pistons to crankshaft, and then drag off and then set members as 1, set to true, connect the execution pins, and then just change the widget we're looking for, which is the crankshaft, and then select the BPS vehicles and the set members, and then Control C this because we are going to need it. And then just do the same for the other pieces of code. Take out the pistons, drag off, and then look for the crank S2. And then once you're done, just make sure to double check everything to make sure you don't have to come back later. So that is that for the crank. We're just going to test it out to see if the widget has been updated. Add performance, crankshaft. So there we go. Now we have the factory installed instead of the stage 1 with the pistons. So we are in fact targeting the right component. So now we're going to do the rest as well. So maps, widgets, workshop, and then next we're going to do the boost. So open up the boost. dock this to the top, and then we can remove the text block here because we don't need it. So then the get text should be the function. So it's this one. We can remove this function. Then let's just set up everything for the boost. So by the factory, we need to change the set members. From the piston, we select the boost consumption rate, boost refill, decrease delay, refill delay, and the max boost fuel. And then that will be everything. So we're gonna select this, Control C, select over this, remove this, just drag this down a bit, and Control V, connect all the noodles and execution pins, and then do the same here, just drag this down a bit, remove the set members, Control V, connect the execution pins and noodles again. And then the values we're going to use for the factory is the same values that we used when setting up the cars in the blueprint structure in the game instance. Let's see, vehicles. So we have them over here. The values are 2, 1.5, 0.1, 0.4, and 100. So we're just going to copy those values for the factory. In actuality, you don't need to change the boost max fuel. You don't need to change this value if you don't want to. This is more just so if you want to have it be a larger number as you go through the upgrade stages. But since we're going to keep everything at 100 for the tutorial, I'm going to remove this from the set members because all the cars have the default value already set to 100. So I'm just going to remove that from the options. So the boost max fuel, just remove that. So I only have these 4 to mess around with. Do the same for the other ones as well. And then for the stage 1, for all of them actually, I'm going to use some rather exorbitant values just to make the differences between each stage more noticeable. So the boost consumption rate for stage 1 is 1.7, the refill rate is also 1.7, and then the boost decrease delay is going to be 0.15, and then the refill will be 0.27. So the idea with the boost is that you want to decrease your consumption rate so that less boost is being consumed when you hold the button. You want to increase your refill rate so that more boost comes in when you let go of the button. Then you also want to increase your decrease delay time so that more time has to pass between each consumption. And then you want to lower your refill delay so that the time between each refill amount being added is shorter, therefore making it quicker to refill with each upgrade stage. So I'm just gonna do the other ones. So the next one for stage 2 is going to be 1.3. The refill is going to be 2.2. The decrease delay is going to be 0.25. And then the refill delay is going to be 0.14. And then for the last stage, it's going to be 1, 3, 0.35, and then 0.05. So those are the numbers. They are quite exaggerated. As I said, we need to, well, for the purpose of the tutorial, it's to show the fact that the code is actually working by making it so very obvious how much the differences between each stage is apparent. So then we're going to do the same like we did with the crankshaft, just rename the variable. So instead of pistons, it's going to be the boost, then just compile. They're going to add to the boost pop-up, add to the graph there, change this one as well from the pistons to boost, then compile here. back to the boost, and then we're going to swap out the brake. So select the brake vehicles, not the pistons, but the boost, and then drag off from there, and then break the boost, and then we're going to do stage 1 only. So hide the other ones, connect to the branch, control C, and then onto stage 2, control V, connect the noodles, swap out the stage 1 for stage 2, connect that noodle, stage 3 as well, and then we need to swap out the widget. So this is going to be the boost pop-up, and just connect the right one, refresh the node, and then that will be it. We need to change this one. Okay, so this one is going to be a little bit different for the check stage install. So we're going to choose one component. You can choose any one of them. I am going to choose the consumption rate, and then use that as the determining factor. Hide the pistons. So the for stage 1, it is 1.7. For stage 2, it is 1.3. And then for stage 3, it is 1. So that's how we're going to check which stage of the boost system is installed. So 1.7, 1.3, and then 1. And then we're going to compile, save. That should be everything for the boost widget. I think that is everything. Boost, just double check, make sure. Then we're going to go to the pop-up, and then in here we're going to do the same things, double check everything. The tier comp, the cost needs to be changed from the piston to the boost as well, stage 2, and here as well is the boost stage 3, and then that is fine. While the next one is the purchase, do the same things, the boost, so in here we have the same thing as we have with the sit. We need all the parameters exposed, which means you kind of have to make some changes here. Drag this down a bit, or drag it forward. Let it there. I think that's better. And then just move the rest of the code. So we're just going to do all of these as well. And these ones, I'm just going to move all of them forward a bit. And then that should be fine. So now we need to add the values here as well. So the consumption is 1.7, refill 1.7, decrease delay is 0.15, the refill delay is 0.27, and then we swap out the pistons for the BPS boost, remove the set members, then we set the members in the boost, set this to stage 1, 2, and then connect the execution pins, select these two nodes, control C. Actually, we can just select all 3 of them, actually, control C, and then select all of these, remove them, and then control V, connect the execution pins, connect the noodles, the execution pin here as well, and then just change the values. This one is 1.3, 2.2, 0.25, and 0.14. Then from stage 1 to stage 2, set it as true, And then also the widget from the pistons to the boost. Then for the last one, stage 3, remove Control V. Then going to do that, connect the noodles and the execution pins, change the values, 1, 3, 0.35, and then 0.05 from stage 1 to stage 3, that it is true. And then this is it for the boost. Just double check everything, make sure everything is in order. See, there's something that I forgot to do. Forgot to connect the noodles. Just not recompile. Okay, that's fine. So that is that for the boost. The brakes and the tires are going to be the same as the pistons and the crank. There really isn't that much of a difference between them. So I'm going to be speed running through that. And then the next one that I will be showing is the transmission, which is the only other widget that's going to be slightly different from everything else, where everything was a 1 point something. The transmission is going to be a 0 point something because we are looking for a reduction in shift time and not an increase in shift time. So I'm just going to speed run through the other two widgets and then we'll come back and do the transmission afterwards. One thing I do want to mention is that you can, if you want to, have the front brakes and the rear brakes multiplier be different values if you want to add that level of depth into your game. I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to keep them both exactly the same because in the wheel blueprint, I am already going to set them up so that depending on the car, it will have either a more front bias or a more rear bias when it comes to the amount of brake torque that is available when the player, like for most cars have like a front bias brake. So let's say for example, the car in the front has about 1800 Newton meters of torque for the front brakes, and in the rear brakes it only has like 700. So by default, the car is already front bias. And if you want to keep it that way as you go through the upgrade stages, you can simply just have the front brakes multiply and the rear brakes multiplier be exactly the same because it will always lean in favor of the front brake bias. But if you want to, as the car goes up in stages, the car kind of gets more balanced. So it goes from being a front bias car to a bit more shift towards the front and the rear being closer in value, so the car has better braking force. You can then work out the maths so that your multipliers do make that happen as you go through the stages. But for me, as I said, I'm going to keep it very simple. Every car is going to be front bias, so the multiply values for the brakes is going to be exactly the same. So for me, what I'm going to do is for stage 1, it's going to be 1.2. For stage 2, it's going to be 1.6. And then for stage 3, it's going to be 2 across the board, front and rear. Oh, and then also if you are going to keep the multipliers exactly the same, you don't have to use both front and rear multipliers. You can just choose either the front multiplier as the value you're going to use to determine the stages. But if, like again, if you're going to go for the little bit more in-depth version where your multiplier values aren't going to be the same, then you are going to need to actually not even then because it's going to be exactly the same. You can, because it's with each stage, it's going to upgrade. So it's pretty much going to make exactly the same. It's going to remain exactly the same. You can just decide are you going to use the front or the rear because even if you're adding depth to the game, since the changes are going to be applied as a per stage thing instead of an individual. So if you purchase a stage, it's going to be stage one that's going to make the difference, and not stage one front and stage one here. It's going to be just stage one. You can just choose either the front multiplier or the rear multiplier to use to determine which stage the text is going to say the player currently has installed. Okay, so instead of going through through the remainder of the widgets, I decided I'm just gonna do the transmission, and then once I'm done with this, it's gonna be the end because this is the only one that's gonna be different from the other ones that's left over. So I'll do the tires off screen before the next video instead of making this video unnecessarily longer than what it needs to be. So the same is going to be for the transmission. It's going to be one on the factory. And then for the first stage, what we are going to do is, unlike the pistons and the brakes and everything else that, as I stated before, is a 1.x, which makes it more, we need to reduce the shift time. So it's going to be a 0 point something. So only the factory will be a 1.0. So from the factory, we're going backwards. So what I'm going to do is, for the cars, I'm going to set them up with a shift time of maybe 0.8 to 1 second, just to kind of exaggerate the point. And then through the upgrades, we will then see how much was the cost shift. So with the, gonna select the shift time, deselect the pistons, and then the set members, as for the first stage, we're going to do it as 0.8. So 0.8 is going to be a 20% reduction from the base shift time of the car. That is how you would understand it. So whatever the difference is between this number and 100 will be the actual reduction. So the values I'll be using is 0.8, 0.5, and then 0.1. So it's going to be a 20% reduction, 50% reduction, and then a 90% reduction. Just to make the point very obvious. But apart from all of these that I'm going to do now, the next part, which is the transmission pop-up, is going to follow the exact same principle. The set members will then be the same as it is right now in the widget. So we're just going to do that, but then it's going to follow the exact same principle. We're just going to swap out the needed components. So effectively, you could end the video here and then go off on your own and then complete your project. But I'm just gonna finish this video off just to show then the last part of the transmission. Then once I'm done with the transmission, I'm gonna end up the video, and then I'll do the remaining tires widget off screen before the next video, because like I said, I don't want to make this video way longer than what it actually needs to be. So I'm just going to do the transmission just to show that how it's supposed to look like, but then that will be it for the video. Also, it seems like I used the wrong variable because I used the shift time and not the shift time multiplier. Sorry about that. I used the wrong variable. It was with the shift time multiplier and not the shift time. Okay, so before I end up the video, just gonna go and make sure that all the other widgets are the same. Well, for me, it's going to be everything but the tires. I'm gonna go performance, crank, we have factory installed, pistons, stage 1 installed, boost, factory installed, brakes, factory, tires should say stage 1, but it hasn't been changed yet. Yes, it does say that. And then the transmission is the factory. So the tires are still off screen, but that brings us to the end of this video. And in the next video, we are going to be working on the wheel customization. And then after we're done with the wheels, we are going to move on to the paint. The reason we're doing the paint after the wheels is because the paint needs to both be able to change the car's body and then the wheels, change both wheels. So the default wheels and then the other wheels that also comes with. So we need to set up that code, and we can only test it when we do have the wheel customization in place. And then once we're done with the wheels and the paint, and then we'll move on to the garage. And then we will effectively, after we're done with the garage, we will be done with the boring part of the tutorial series. And then we will move on to the open world, which I think will be more enjoyable than what we've done so far, setting up all the widgets. But just a bit more, and then we are going to get to hopefully the fun part of the tutorial series. But with that, that brings us to the end of this video, and until the next one.